Alright, welcome to another video, and before we get started, I'd like to take a quick minute to thank all the Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members whose names you see scrolling across the screen right now. They make this financially possible, and without you, I probably wouldn't be here making videos, so thank you. Alright, so first of all, we're going to address the title of this video. I just thought it'd be kind of fun to do something a little bit different this time. Anyway, we're flying the penguins. That's where the penguin comes from. There's a deer in the video. It'll be coming up later in the video. See if you can spot it. Put a timestamp in the comments if you do. There's only one. And obviously the murder of crows. There's a big group of crows that we're going to kind of chase around and play around with them a little bit. But these are all things that were distracting me from the main purpose of this flight in the first place, which was to try out a Radiomaster Ranger transmitter and a receiver that Radiomaster sent to me. Apparently in one of my videos I'd mentioned in passing that I was playing around with Express LRS. I'd flashed a FrSky R9 module, an old one that I had in my parts bin that I wasn't using anymore. I flashed that and an old R9mm receiver and played around with it in the Dart 250 a little bit. Then I bought a Diversity 900 MHz receiver and used it with that same flashed R9 transmitter. And I flew that just once or twice in the Dolphin while I was troubleshooting issues with it, like I mentioned in the last video. But I really haven't decided what to do with that receiver yet. But apparently Radiomaster was paying attention, so thank you for that. They heard me mention that I was playing around with Express LRS and decided to send me like I said, a Ranger transmitter and I think 6 different receivers. There's quite a few of them there. I haven't even really looked through them all yet. But I mounted one of them. It's a little single antenna receiver. Hang on a minute. I can actually tell you the exact model number if I can find the packaging real quick. Alright, so the model number of the receiver I'm using on this flight in the Penguin is the Radiomaster RP1-V2. It's a little small, actually tiny little receiver. It's actually kind of comparable to the Crossfire receivers, if not maybe even a little bit smaller. But it's just a little single dipole antenna on it. And I mounted it out on the wing, same spot I had the Crossfire receiver in here previously. But this is my first time using 2.4 GHz Express LRS, and I really wasn't expecting a lot, to be honest. I expected to have issues. Not because Express LRS on 2.4 GHz doesn't work well. It's been proven to work beyond most people's expectations. But I was worried about the environment that I'm going to be testing it in today. As most of you know, I fly from inside my shop. It is a little shop that sits out next to the open flying fields, and I have an open door and windows and things where I can see out. But nonetheless, I'm inside the shop. And there is very few obstructions outside between me and the open air that I'm flying in. But you have to consider, like I said, we are inside, and there is junk hanging on the walls like most cluttered workspaces are. So that's one issue, one factor that I expected to affect the performance of it, being a relatively higher frequency link than what I normally fly on either 433 or 915 megahertz. And another thing, I'd have a Wi-Fi router, an internet router with Wi-Fi enabled, sitting probably 5 feet from the desk where I sit to fly, or the chair I'm sitting in. And it's kind of in front of me where the direction that I fly my planes. It's kind of between me and the airplane. And I do have 2.4 gigahertz enabled on that router to work with some of the devices that I have in my workshop. It's kind of necessary. I need it. I was expecting that to be an issue, but it didn't seem to be the case at all. Like I said, I set it up. And another thing, I'm using 100 megahertz full resolution packet rate, or the 100/full, whatever, packet rate, and I'm using a relatively high telemetry rate. I set it to 1 to 2, which is the highest you can set it. I had it set lower than that, I think like 1 to 8 when I flew on the 900 megahertz stuff, playing around with that previously. But this time I wanted the higher telemetry rate just to see if it would work. And for my switch mode, I'm using 12 channel mixed on this one. I was using 16 channel rate /2, which is like half rate. But this one I'm using 12 channel mixed, which is the first 4 channels at full rate. 5 channel is binary for your ARM channel, and then all the channels after that are half rate, or 50 hertz update rate. Now, I typically fly in fixed wing. I never go through the trouble of setting up higher refresh rates for my servos, anything above 50 hertz anyway. Although several of them airplanes have digital servos that can do it. I just don't bother. I've done it in the past. I didn't really see any improvement in the way the airplanes fly. So I just don't bother with it. I run 50 hertz on all my servos anyway. So having 50 hertz update channels and on the radio link is kind of fine with me. I'm not really concerned about chasing any higher update rates than that. No, I don't know if that's optimal for a fixed wing or anything. Like I said, I'm just starting to play around with the LRS, but it works for me. And like I said, I just took the Penguin out with this little single antenna receiver. It's not a diversity receiver or anything like that. And I was just kind of knowing that all of these things are less than optimal. I was just kind of shooting for like a mile or two just to prove that it was flyable and functional and not going to be a big issue. And to my surprise, I actually made it out 2 miles and was still on 25 milliwatts. So I'm running dynamic power in the Ranger transmitter. I have the maximum set up to 1 watt, but I have it dynamic so it only uses what it needs. I actually did do the 2 watt unlock or whatever, the hack or unlock, whatever you want to call it. I did enable the 2 watt output option, but I only set it to maximum 1 watt for now. But honestly, I don't think I'll ever need anywhere near that kind of power anyway. Like I said, I was just hoping it was going to be flyable, but I totally did not expect to go 2 miles and still be on 25 milliwatts. For a couple of reasons. Well, a few reasons, all the ones I mentioned previously. But one thing that I haven't mentioned yet is the dynamic power relies on the telemetry link back from the receiver to the transmitter to know how good the signal is to be able to adjust the power output accordingly. So for it to stay on 25 milliwatts, not only did we have a solid control link to the airplane, but we also had a good telemetry link back to the ground the whole time. Which, I mean, that totally blew my mind. It was unexpected. And not only did we stay on 25 milliwatts, I was only at like 90 something in low 90s, 92 dBm, negative 92 dBm from what I remember right, but you'll probably see that on the screen in the video in the background. And with the way I have everything set up, all the options in the transmitter as far as the packet rate and everything, the theoretical limit is negative 112 if I remember right. I could be wrong on that, but I'll correct it on screen if I'm not. But I think it's negative 112 is basically the cutoff point where you lose signal. And, you know, the further you go, the weaker your signal gets, the lower that number is going to get. And once you get down to negative 112, that's theoretically when you have no more signal into the receiver anymore. And that kind of surprises me that we were only in the 90s and at 2 miles, 200 feet, and still on 25 milliwatts. So that suggests that it still has a fair bit of range left to go on 25 milliwatts before it starts bumping the power up. So yeah, I guess I'll be playing around with some 2.4 gigahertz ELRS here in the future. Now that I know that it's workable and reliable for me, I very much appreciate the convenience of these tiny little receivers, and especially the tiny 2.4 gigahertz antennas. Especially if you're coming from 433 with big long antennas, and then going to 915 is a big improvement over that. But from 915 to 2.4 is that much more improvement again. And these little antennas are tiny and easy to mount. And like I said, this is not even a diversity receiver, so I can pick up some better receivers. I actually have one in the stash of stuff that Radio Master sent me, and again, I'm very thankful for that. I really do appreciate that. And so yeah, I'll mount up a diversity receiver and something and fly it here soon. And I've seen there's a few PWM receivers in there too. We might play around with some of that. But anyway, so like I said, I've just kind of been talking, and I'll edit some video in the background later. You've probably seen the little trip out to 2 miles and back. And obviously we could go further, but that's kind of all I really planned on. So that's kind of all I did. And then on the way back, I ended up just kind of playing around with the Penguin. Like I said, I kind of got distracted, having fun flying, as fun as it is to fly. And there's that one deer in there that you can look for and see if you can spot it. And then we chased the crows around and flew around down low a little bit. So hopefully this has been an enjoyable video. And keep an eye out for what's to come. And I guess any questions or comments about the Penguin or Express LRS or whatever, you can leave them below. And I'll try to answer them if I can. But like I said, keep in mind I am just starting out with Express LRS, so I don't want to kind of pretend to be a know-it-all when I'm just figuring things out for myself. But if I'm able to help out, I will. And if not, maybe we'll learn something together. But yeah, so the little Penguin with Express LRS in it, still working well and still flying well. And I have the Cadex little V3 transmitter in there that's still really impressive. I'm really happy with the image quality and good lighting for this flight for today. And the signal quality is still holding up good and strong too. So kind of want to put some more flight time on this little airplane here pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that and other videos to come soon, and we'll see where we go from here. So thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.